I'm somewhere, lost my shoes. In this mind, you will see who you're really gonna be. Hollowed out, filled with sin. Keeping watch, I don't pretend. Feelings thrown, it's to the ground. Pick it up, and spin around. Stay true, I don't wanna be in this room. Stay true, I don't wanna be in this room. There's no air in this room. I'm somewhere, lost my shoes.
All right.
In this mind, you will see.
That's our theme song there.
Really gonna stay true, I don't wanna be
It's by Kids in the Days.
stay true, I don't wanna be in this room. And keep a little smoke inside.
Welcome tonight. Welcome to the Freakcast. This is my favorite part of the song right here. I want you to hear this next part. This song always makes me inspired. Here we go. Kids in the Days. Give it to us.
Stay true, I don't wanna be in this room. Stay true, I don't wanna be in this room.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Freakcast. My name is Stephen Carroll. I am the head freak in this deal, and we are glad you're here. If you don't follow at Kids in the Days, you should do that. You can follow him on Instagram. He's got some good music coming out, and he's kind of special to us. So listen, we are excited to have you. If you've joined us live, welcome, and making sure it all looks good here. How are we doing here on Facebook? Are we clear over there? So tonight is our first night. We're going to actually have our first guest for the night. And so we're excited about this and glad you joined in with us tonight. This is part of the vision, part of the dream. I told you this when I was sharing with you the other night, just about what we wanted to try to do. And just the idea that every story matters, right? And every story is important. And so we are going to begin to tell the stories and let people, just everyday people like yourself that are battling through things and struggling through things, have a chance to tell their story. And there's a verse that I love, and it's in Revelations 12:11. It says, "They overcame the enemy by the power of the blood and the word of their testimony or their story." And so wherever you are faith-wise and whatever you believe, for me, it's very important. My faith is important to me. And that verse has always been very special and powerful because I believe it's something that we all have a story. You watching this, you have a story to tell. And so that's part of what happens when things happen in our life and we have obstacles coming our way or diagnosis like a stem cell transplant or a multiple myeloma and a stem cell transplant and all this stuff. All that stuff is part of your story. And so we're going to begin to tell that. So tonight, our guest is going to be Lacy Starnes. And so let's bring her up here. There she is. Hey, Lacy.
What's up, man? How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm pretty sad after that Cowboys loss, but outside of that,
really?
I'm doing good. Yeah.
Well, I had a wedding. I didn't even know they lost. I'll be honest with you.
They did. It was disappointing, but it'll be all right.
That is disappointing.
I'm used to it, so we'll move on.
Yeah, Cowboy fans are used to being disappointed. So.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are.
That's the truth. Thank you for being a part of this. And so I want to tell everybody, for you guys that are just, this is the first time, obviously, many of you guys have met Lacy. And so um, I'm going to kind of reflect on how we met for the first time. And we talked
Yeah,
about this earlier today. We were kind of,
yeah,
kind of getting an idea of what we wanted to do. But so I'm at Texas Oncology, and that's where I've been for the last year. Excuse me, I think I just burped. But I was in line I think I was in line, right, to
you're right
check
in front of
in.
me.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
was right in front of you, right? And so I turned around, and Lacy had on a hat that said "Not today," and I didn't know who you were, right? Yeah, there you go.
Yes.
Yeah, that right there. And so I turned around, and Lacy was there, and she had that hat on. I was like, "Gosh, I love your hat." And then what? Then from there, you were like, you recognized my shirt, right?
Yeah. Yes, I saw your shirt. And I had a great friend and a wonderful woman that I work with at my school that knows you. And she had shared with me that, hey, I know a guy that's going through the same stem cell transplant that you're going to go through. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I need to know who that is because I was scared to death, didn't know what to expect. And
Yeah.
then I went and like Facebook stalked you.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, I read a lot of your posts, kind of read your story, and it was crazy then to see you standing right in front of me. And I was like, do I say something?
Well,
So
of
I did.
course.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you were like, "Hey, you're the freak guy," or something like that,
Yeah.
which was cool because it was
Yeah.
like, I mean, I don't know. Well, Ginger, right, was our friend,
Yes.
and so I've
Awesome
known her.
woman.
Yeah, I've known Ginger and Randy and Brittany and their family for years, and
Yes.
so it's such a small world, right? How and divine how everything kind of crosses paths, and I
Absolutely.
think there's a such a power in that, and that's what it's supposed to be, is about relationships, and just being a part of people's lives. And there's never
Yes.
ever they say there's not a word for coincidence um in the Hebrew language. It's always providence. So the fact that I was there and you were
Ah,
there, right? You know what
yes.
I'm saying? It
Yes.
was like this
Yes.
divine moment. And so
Providence.
then at that point it was like we kind of connected. I was like, yeah, we gotta connect. And I don't know, that was in the spring of last year, right?
Yeah, I want to say it was early spring, maybe late February, maybe early March. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think so
Yeah.
too. And so we begin to connect, and then I just kind of want you to begin to tell, kind of share your story. Let everybody know what your journeys of, what you've been going through and what you've been battling,
Yeah.
and just kind of start from the beginning, how you got diagnosed and how you found out and that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. Because I just want you to share
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, sure. It was an interesting journey, but I'm 37 years old, and this was
Mm,
last year. I was 36 years old, and I'm an assistant principal, just living life. And it's so weird to look back because I was just blowing and going every day at work. I get up in the mornings, I go run on a treadmill, I come back, I'm drinking protein shakes, living life, doing the healthy things. And a few months before I was diagnosed, I had worked summer school. It was my first year as a district summer school principal. It was a really cool opportunity. But my last day as a summer school principal was my first day back on contract as a regular assistant principal. And so I went into the fall tired, to say the least.
right.
And and that plays a big part because when I started to show symptoms, I just thought I'm out of whack. Like I didn't get a break over the summer. My body's tired, and
Well, what were your
um,
symptoms like?
yeah. Starting in October, I started having some abdominal pain, and the abdominal pain was kind of in the lower left region of my abdomen, and I couldn't tell if it was ovary female related or if it was my stomach. And I was tired, but again, like I just thought I had been going. It came and it went, and then when it came back a second time and it stayed. And I started running a low grade fever.
Mm,
And then I started to lose my appetite. My stomach just started to not feel good, and that pain was just radiating to the back. And I went through my family doctor. I went to a box ER. they were running tests, couldn't find anything. I ended up at a stomach doctor. He thought I had appendicitis, sent me to the Baylor ER, and that CAT scan, I'll never forget that night at the Baylor ER. A guy came back and he said, "Hey, you don't have appendicitis." And I was like, "Well, great." And he said, "But there is something that, I don't want you to be alarmed, but there seems to be some sort of soft tissue something that we don't know what it is." And
Right.
he said, "And I don't want to alarm you. Like the person that's reading the scan has to list a number of options. It could be an infection or it could be malignancy." And I was like, "Cancer?"
Malignancy. Yeah.
Yeah. And dude, I'm going to tell you, he looked at me. I will never forget this night. The ER doctor looked at me and he said, he said, "Listen," he said, "look at me. I'm this concerned. I'm not this concerned. It's this." And I lived in that space right there. I was like, "Oh, okay." And that night, I got referred to a hematologist at Baylor Salmon's Cancer Center. And for whatever reason, like when I walked through the doors and it said Texas Oncology, I was like, "Man,
No.
this cannot be cancer. I'm 36 years old. I'm perfectly healthy.
Right.
I take a multivitamin. What?" And
Yeah.
you know, the first day I saw him, he wasn't sure that it
Right.
wasn't still an infection. And it actually turns out, my man, that I had a CAT scan done weeks before this doctor's appointment and it didn't show anything. But when his radiologist looked at the first scan and the second scan they did at Baylor, it was there and they didn't
Yeah.
report it.
Ah.
So when I saw him that day, he said, "We'll see what happens." Because at the time he didn't see anything. And so 7 o'clock that night, he called me back and he said, "Lacy, my radiologist took a look at your first scan. Something's there. And we got to figure out what it is." And I said, "Well, is it cancer?" And he said, "I don't know what it is." And that led to a biopsy. It was very difficult to get that biopsy because that mass was sitting on my aortic artery and they
Oh,
couldn't
wow.
get to it. So they couldn't get to it, so they had to find a lymph node that was farther away. It was a tiny, tiny sample, and he said, "I'm not sure if we're gonna get anything out of this sample." Sure enough, about 6 days later, he called, and, I was at work at my school. I was in an assistant principal's office, another assistant principal's office, and I remember getting up and walking out of the office, coming down a hallway, and he said, "This looks to be lymphoma." And I was like, I mean, I don't it was the strangest moment in my life. I just
Yeah, I
sat
know.
down and yeah, it's that moment, you never forget it. And
Right.
he started saying a bunch of things, and then I heard the phrase stage 3, and I didn't know much about cancer, but that didn't sound like a good stage to be in.
Yeah.
And and that's where the journey started. And
Right.
it was quick and it was fast.
I
I
know, and that's
started
like,
as Yeah.
oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say I started treatment not even 2 weeks later.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that
So
moment, like when you get that call, it's like for me, I can relate because I was in the parking lot in my truck, or no, I was at a rental place actually, and you get that call, and it's like my first response isn't very good. My first response word
yeah.
wasn't very good. I don't know about yours.
Yeah.
Involved holy, but anyway,
Yeah.
yeah, and I think that's the
Yeah.
thing is like I think so many people. So how like when you get that call, and it's like you're trying to process everything, right? And it's just like
Yeah.
everything just jumbles up in your head.
Yeah. 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 It was blurry. I actually I was on the phone with him and I put my cell phone on speakerphone and I texted my close group at school and I said, "I need people in my office right now." And
Yeah.
before I knew it, Ginger was down there and two other colleagues were there and they had their hands on my shoulder and on my head. And I think one was praying while I was talking.
Right.
And
Ah,
it it was just shocking.
yeah.
It was just shocking. It's like the
Yeah.
last thing you would think. It was
And so
crazy.
you were in treatment like really quick, and tell like you were telling me earlier, so the type of cancer that you were diagnosed with, and I always use those terms like, for instance, I try to stay away from this idea of saying I got cancer. You know, I try to always. I've got a friend named Albert. We've talked about this a lot, but just and you're a lot the same way. You know, you have to recognize, okay, this is okay. All right, so this is in my life. I can't get away from it, right? But it's something I've been diagnosed with, and so I've always said I've tried to keep my terminology where I've been diagnosed, even though you've been diagnosed. You know, I plan on. I don't want it to define me. I guess is what I'm saying. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. I'm
It's
more
like
than a cancer diagnosis.
yeah, exactly, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
We're more than that, and yeah, we've got it. You know, well, there I went, but yeah, it's something that's come into our life. But
Yeah.
I don't know, just your attitude matters so much, doesn't it? I mean, from even because when you get that call, it's like so intense and so overwhelming, and you can't even process it. It's like somebody took a fire hose and just started shoving water in your mouth. You know, you can't consume that much at one time. It's
Yeah.
like you have to take some steps back and try to figure
Yeah.
out, okay, what the frick's going on?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing. But that's what I love about you, and I want you to, you know, obviously you're going to continue to share more about it. But the thing I love about Lacy is that from the first time, I mean, even in that line, I turned around and you were just like, you know, you were had a huge smile on your face, and you could just tell your attitude and the atmosphere that you had around you was one of, you know, you know, a fighter, right? And that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
try to be careful with words that I use, but because I think attitude matters, you know. But even though
Yeah.
you have to get the news and process it, you have to figure out what direction we're going to go.
Yeah.
All that stuff matters, and I just see that in your life too.
Yeah. I don't I think a lot of a cancer diagnosis, it does depend on a lot of what's your life before that, and
Oh, that's good.
I
Yeah,
think that I had a strong support system around me, but I think that I have faced events in my lifetime that I've had to learn grit and resilience. And
yeah,
part of my message, the Not Today, actually comes from the Game of Thrones show. And
right. Tell
um,
people about that. I
there,
love that.
yeah, oh yeah. So there's a character in Game of Thrones. Her name is Arya Stark. For those that don't know, and she is, Game of Thrones is set in the medieval times, and she is the youngest female of the family. And her older sister, you know, they're typical females. They're the ones that want to do the dresses and do the braiding of the hair. And she was a fighter. She wanted to learn
Right.
archery and sword fighting. And her dad set her up with a professional fighter and taught her how to sword fight. And this guy, on the very first day of their sword lessons, before they even began teaching her how to fight, he said, "Wait." And he said, "Number one rule of fighting: what do we say to the god of death? Not today." And you fight. And from the moment I got this diagnosis, just the experiences I've had in my life have said, get your get your head down and get ready to go.
Yeah.
And that's the only option. And so when this diagnosis came through, like, I was terrified, um, and I was scared. And I will tell you that the whole time, it's no secret. I want to be honest. Like, I had a positive attitude. I fight, but lots of tears and
Yeah,
lots of
absolutely.
scary moments of just like, what's happening here. And then what I've learned in this journey is you can be scared and you can be brave and you go forward. Period.
Yeah.
You can't wait till you're not scared.
Yeah.
And so I was very, on my journey to a cure page. On that journey, as I detailed it, I talked a lot about that. There were good days and there were bad days, but you fight. That's what you do. Um,
Yeah.
God, the great God still has me here. So that's what I got to do.
Yeah. Well, and what you had too is like, I mean, tell a little bit about that because you have,
Oh, the diagnosis.
I'm not even going to say it correctly at all, so I'm not even going to
Yeah,
try.
no,
And I
you're
mean, here's
fine.
the thing: you're 37 years old, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I've got another friend. She's going to be on this week. Her name is Sydney, and I think she just turned 30. And
Oh, gosh.
yeah, and it's the thing is, so and what you just said, I think is so important because my wife Donna always has told me, she's like, you make this crap look too easy. She might not say anyway, but it's not easy,
No.
and we have to, and it's hard and it's difficult, and people that have been through this know. But and we'll get to that in a second. But I wanted
Yeah.
you to tell people because what you have is a very rare form of blood cancer, right?
Yes. 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 So I have what they call peripheral T cell, and it is a rare T cell. It's not very dominant in the United States. In fact, when I did the research on
Really,
it, it's more dominant in the UK and South Africa.
really.
Um, and what's funny is I sat for a week after my diagnosis, just kind of sitting in the fact that I had cancer, and then it got worse when I decided to start Googling it and learning about it.
Yeah, that's
But
awful.
the thing about peripheral T cell is that it's what they call a stubborn cancer, and it oftentimes it can be very treatment resistant. And so I will never forget receiving the news that it has a 60% survivability rate. And
Wow.
part of that comes from young people typically don't get it. This is usually in older individuals, and the treatment to try to save you can be very rough. And coming in with my age and my health, that helped. But I ended up getting a second opinion through the Mayo Clinic because it was a rare T cell. Like, this can't be right. Like, let's double check this. But they confirmed it, and you know, he just essentially said we're going to do 6 rounds of chemo, and then we're going to do this stem cell transplant. Which at the time I didn't understand what that was. Like, I thought they were just
Right.
going to hook me up with an IV for a couple of hours, and there's your transplant. No, but um, realizing that 6 in 10 uh, survive this was probably the biggest hit to me.
Yeah.
And I went from right before my diagnosis, I'm making plans to perhaps be a school principal in the next year or two. I had already accepted. I was going back to school because I'm also interested in getting my licensed professional counseling
Right.
certification, and I got accepted. And weeks later, like, everything just blew up. Like, all of a sudden, you may not be here next year. So what now? And
Yeah.
it was a game changer. And so I've been in remission. Um, I was in remission after my second treatment. There was no evidence of disease. The first 2 rounds knocked it out. It hasn't come back as of now. So the thing about with peripheral T cell is that you're grateful for each month, and you're
Yeah.
grateful for each clear scan, and
Do you go
it's just
monthly
it's a
for it?
waiting.
You said
Um,
you had a scan in August, right?
yes, and because my doctor said I was clear before transplant and clear after, he said let's scan in February, and I'm like, are you sure? Should we do it sooner? Um, but everyone that I told you earlier today, I know a handful of people that have this diagnosis. I've met them on Facebook, and they're across the country, and 3 of them have already relapsed. We've all been kind of at that same pace, um, and it's a hurry up and wait. And so, oh no, did I lose you?
Well,
There we
your
go.
next scan's in February, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Well, so I got some, and I think the thing too, like, so you went through. First of all, I think I don't know, 37, and I'm 54, so I mean, almost twice your age. No, no, it's not quite. It doesn't matter. But
not
anyway,
quite, not
yeah,
quite.
I'm older than you.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
but even so, it's like you I appreciate what you said because it's like when you get that and there's all these things that go through your mind and trying to figure out, and you immediately start trying to figure out, okay, what do I have? What does this mean? Because there's ones
yeah,
that even with this breast cancer, whatever cancer it is, there's like you said, there's stages and there's different people, and it doesn't matter who
yeah,
you talk to when you get that call, that word, cancer. And sadly, it
yeah,
feels like so many times now. I don't know if you feel this way, but like when you get a new car or you get a different car and you're driving around, all of a sudden you start seeing that car everywhere. I don't know if you
yeah,
if you see that,
yes.
but it's the same thing with cancer. It's like all of a sudden you feel like
Hmm.
you're connected with person after person after person.
Yeah,
Although, which we'll get to in a second, the stem cell transplant, I think was something obviously that connected us because with blood cancer, that's part of, the
Part of
process.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, and hopefully like which we'll get to in a second, your stem cell transplant has been successful and to this point and believing that it will continue to be. But
Yes.
I think what you said earlier, I had these pictures and I told you I tried to download them and I downloaded them wrong. So I'm going to pull, I don't know if I'm, I don't know if I put up the right one. There's one that I wanted that when you first started your journey and I don't know if I can't
Oh,
find
there's
it,
one. Yeah. Yes. Yes.
but let me see.
It's
I don't know where it's at. This isn't it. That's not it.
no. That is
No,
this fall.
that's
That's
this
as soon as
fall,
my
right?
hair started to grow back. Yes. This was the
Okay, well
beginning
this
of
is my
hair growth.
yeah, we'll talk about that in a second. This is
Ah.
my favorite one, right? I love this picture. And
Yes.
and I think it kind of goes um well this one here I think I've got another one too. That's was this the same day as this? Well it's kind of come up here. I've got the one this one you ring the bell, doesn't it? Was this your last day of chemo?
Yes. This was my very last day of my initial frontline treatment. I still had chemo to take in the transplant. Yep. There I am.
Right, there you
Last
are right there, right?
day.
Yeah.
Oh Lord.
What a
I
great
was
thing,
so
right? I mean,
happy.
that I don't know, just it's like you and even though like for me, I had 16 weeks of treatment or 15 weeks of treatment. And so I rang the bell at the end of those 15 weeks. Of course, now I'm back in treatment once a month. And
Yes.
so eventually I'm going to be ringing
Yes.
that bell again, right? But this
Yes.
picture here, so this is when you were leaving that day, correct?
Yes, that was I was walking out the exit. I couldn't be happier. I knew I had more
Yeah.
chemo to go, but like being done with that, um,
Yeah.
that I my first treatment was December 20th, and that picture was taken in the middle of April.
Wow.
So
Wow.
that was a that was a long journey. I was
And so
happy.
you said you had like you said you had like you had 2 weeks of treatment and then you do another PET scan and then or something like that was it or and then once they figured out what it was
Yeah,
then you kind of so how'd your treatment go? And then we'll move to the
yeah.
stem
So
cell transplant.
essentially they gave me something called the golden bullet. That is the name of my chemo treatment, and he
The
explained the golden bullet, and he explained to me that a lot of chemo treatments, they do a really strong one and then they
Right.
do a few weaker ones, and
Yeah.
mine every time consisted of four strong ones.
Yeah.
And so uh, I had 2 rounds of it, and then they went back and PET scanned to see if the cancer was reacting to it. And
Yeah.
that's a cool story all on its own. But after the second round, we needed to see, was my cancer there? Was it
Right.
shrinking? And when they went in after the second round, it was gone. It was gone. And that was a really cool thing. And I wanted to be done at that point. I said, can we forget about the other four? And he was like,
Right.
no. So I went through 4 more rounds. And then I had about a month off to help my body just kind of recuperate. And then it was back into the hospital for another week of chemo, and then the transplant. So,
Okay. Well, I love that.
yeah.
I've got some I have to pull up I don't think it's fair that I show your bald pictures, but talk about that too cuz it's like I mean for a guy it's
Oh,
different, right? And so cuz there's a picture of and this is the one I was trying to find of you before you started the whole deal and
I'm at the fair. I think I showed you. I was eating a corn
yeah.
dog.
Yeah, and
That
you
was
had hair and
6
everything and
weeks
then
before.
yeah. And so like going through
Um,
that, I know I've talked to several friends of mine that are ladies and of course
yeah.
for a guy, it's just not the same, you know? Um,
No, this was. It still chokes me up, and I try not to let it. Yes, I think women handle this differently, but I think I was a cross of both reactions. I was both just ready to get it done, but I'll never forget after my first round of chemo, they said that I might start losing my hair after the second or third round, but after
right,
the very first round, it was Christmas break, a few days after Christmas, and because I wanted to keep my mind busy, I was
right,
in my kitchen cleaning out the cabinets, and as I was pulling stuff out of the cabinets, I felt like my hair was getting staticky, like, when it's really cold outside or something and my hair was getting staticky. And so I went to go like this to just kind of calm it down. And when I did, there was hair in my hand.
Yeah.
And I just stared at it. And I will never forget that. Um, about for the next few days, every time I would just move, I would get up from a pillow, there'd be hair. I remember coming that I'd drawn the line. 2 days after the kitchen event, I was trying to straighten my hair because I would always
Yeah.
have to straighten it so it didn't wave out like this. And the hair just came out with the straightener, and I just sat on the bathroom floor and just started crying because, you know, every time I kept grabbing hair, it kind of felt like I was attending a funeral every time I would have hair in my hand. And
Right.
I finally said, "That's it." And when I went back to school, once we got back from Christmas break, the very first day, I said, "Shave it off." And my mom's heart was broken. She did not. She kept trying to say, "Can we wait? Like, let's just see how much you actually lose." And I said, I can't keep doing this. I can't keep seeing this hair." And you don't realize how much of your identity as a woman uh,
Yeah.
is in your hair. It was more than I thought it was. And
Yeah.
it's it was difficult. A lot easier, lower maintenance. But
Yeah.
um,
Yeah. Yeah. My
every
boys.
yeah,
Good.
I was going to say every time I put on an outfit, clothes that I've worn, I would put them on and I'd say, "I don't like these clothes," because it just
Yeah.
hair throws off the entire thing. So,
Yeah. Well, and I think too. I mean, obviously, it's just a big deal. This is that picture you were talking about. I found it. This was
oh,
you
there
right
I
at the
am.
beginning. Yeah.
Yes, this was me about
This
7
was
weeks before. I didn't know I had cancer there,
right.
but it was already in me and I didn't know it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I've had long straight hair my whole life. I
Yeah.
mean, how was it for you? Like,
Honestly, I mean, I don't know. Of course, I'm an idiot, and I think that I'm going to be the only exception to the rule, right? And so my nurse Curtis was like, when mine happened because my treatment was immunotherapy, and so
mhm.
um, and so that didn't cause my hair to disappear because immunotherapy, is what it kills the bad cells, but doesn't kill the good cells, and it goes after the bad cells, I rather. And so, but then I got the heavy dose of chemo, which the one that wipes out your stem cell transplant. Oh, I mean, it wipes
Yes.
out your immune system. And
Yes.
so my nurse was Curtis, and it was the same. It was the
I like
same thing.
Curtis. I
Like,
know Curtis.
do you know Curtis? You had Curtis?
Oh, I
Freaking
had
love
Curtis.
Curtis.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I was like, um, and so one day I, I was telling him, I'm like, no, man, I'm gonna. He said your hair's coming out. He said you need to just prepare yourself for that. It's gonna happen. And so, sure enough, I mean, the same kind of thing. I was washing my hair and it was coming out. So, I've got a video of him um, shaving my hair. What did you? Um, yeah, I put it on TikTok actually.
Oh,
But I
I
don't know.
did see that. I did see that.
It was kind of weird, I mean, obviously, but like you said, once it just is part of it, and then you just start wearing the hats and all that stuff. So but it was different. I mean, and what's funny was, it isn't funny, but weird was a few years ago, there's a filter on one of the apps that would show you bald. And so I sent it to everybody, and it was like, so I actually put a picture up like of me really bald in that app, and just kind of a weird deal. Of course, my goatee came out too. And, and everybody's like, just shave your mustache. And I said, no, I'm holding on to something. I mean, so
Yes.
it got real light and everything and sketchy, but I just, so I guess for me, it was weird, right? But like you said, it's just, you just kind of roll through it. It's just not the same as
Yeah.
what you experience. Cause like you said, I mean, a lady's identity, your hair is such a big deal. It's just harder. And um, so it's just not the same,
Yeah, and I
honestly.
and I think to a certain degree every cancer patient, especially when you get you're taking the steroids, you're losing your hair, like,
Yeah.
and it you end up really pale, and there comes that
Yeah.
moment where you're looking in the mirror and you're like,
Yeah,
"Who
that's
is
right.
this?"
Yeah, and you said, and I mean, I think earlier you said something too that was. I remember the first time that I went to the front desk, and they were like, name and date of birth, and I'm like,
Yeah,
and I told them Stephen Carroll and my birthday, and they give you all this stuff, and it's like, I think you said earlier, like you walked into the room and like, what am I doing here? It's like this thing,
yeah, yeah,
and I think that's part of the process, right? That you have to
it is.
just have those moments where you just have to continue to recognize it, and I think, like you said earlier, you're going to go through all those emotions and feelings, and I think everybody tells you you're going to beat this, and you're a fighter, and all the and I'm like, okay, yeah, but I mean, but am I going to beat this? I mean, I believe I'm going to beat this, but I mean, it's like you said earlier, when you hear that 60%, and you start putting numbers to it. And in your mind, I think mentally, because we talked about this earlier, your attitude and mental is so much, and we can end with that. Maybe we can talk more about that later, but we still have
Yeah,
to face the reality of it. And I mean, people watching this tonight, I mean, there's people that are going through something. Everybody's going through something, and and obviously we're talking about cancer, and there's tons of people that are going through that. And there's a book. Did you get that book, 50 Days of Hope? Did I give you that book?
no, you gave me two
I'm an
other book
awful
ideas.
friend. Why did I
Oh
give you that
no.
book? You need that book anyway. But there's a book, and my sister gave it to me. It's called 50 Days of Hope, and that's what I love about that book. Golly, I can't believe I didn't give you that book. Anyway,
Well, I'll
we'll
have
get
to
it.
get
We'll
it.
get it to you. Yeah,
Yeah,
but it
yeah,
talks. But I love the book because it gives just a realistic approach to things. Like, you're gonna have bad days, and you're gonna struggle, and you're gonna have all these things that you have to face, and like this Wednesday, I'm gonna go for treatment, and for the foreseeable future, I'm going to do that. But then there's people that say, well, we do the organic thing, and we do this and we do that. You need to try this. You need to take Finban. You need to
yeah.
take this. You need to try these black seeds, and you need to try this lotion,
Yes,
and
I
you
got
need
a
to try
lot
all
of
these,
that.
what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Right. And so,
Get
and
out of that
all of it's
Western
well,
medicine stuff.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And yeah.
Yeah,
And so and I do believe, like, obviously you and I've talked about diet and health
yeah,
and juicing and all that stuff. I believe all that stuff matters. But I bring all that up because at the end of the day, we have to make decisions, not based upon what everybody else, but what we feel like in our spirit, what we feel like in our heart and our family, what we believe
yeah,
it matters.
yeah.
And I think that's, just such a big part of the process. And you said something earlier about who you were becoming before the diagnosis was was foundational to how you would move forward in it as well. And I've said that so many times, it's like, Um, I just think that makes such a big difference. Um, and I
Yeah.
see, and you've seen this too, like when you go to get treatment and you see people in those bays that are with you, and all different things, and so many struggles and battles, and and so you can never ever just tell somebody how they should respond, you know, because everybody
No,
responds
yeah.
differently, right?
Yeah, and I think what was interesting in a lot of the posts that I did on my Journey for a Cure page, I did a lot of posts where I'd talk about the cancer stuff, but then I'd go back to just that human element because there were
Right,
people following me that, didn't have cancer, but lost a husband or wife this year, or lost a
right,
child, or like when it comes down to it, like we're all facing a something, and
right,
who are we in that moment? Um, it is a very active choice you have to make,
right.
and it doesn't come with just perfect days. A lot of people would say, like, you're just so positive, and the whole thing about you're making it look easy, like it was nothing, and it's like, man, you missed a lot of really,
Yeah,
really breakdown moments for me, because
yeah,
it's scary and you're tired, but um, it's about getting up and staying focused,
yeah.
um,
Well, and that's
for
her. And
sure.
if you are on Facebook, you should follow her page. This is it right here. I put it up on the screen, but it's
Yeah.
Lacy's Journey. Isn't that right? Lacy's Journey to the Cure.
Yes, Journey to the Cure, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think that we we talked about this earlier too. It's like that um you know, I'm gonna wait. We You and I are gonna go to bed tonight, and we're gonna wake up in the morning, and everybody has something, you know, like whether it's struggles or this or that or whatever. But tonight we're not talking about all that. We're talking about this, and so we can identify with all that.
Yeah.
But you know, it's like when you're diagnosed, you have this huge onslaught of people, which is normal, you know. But then the longer, especially, you move forward, and for people that um, are facing a diagnosis that like we're, I mean, gosh, like you are, you know, and as something that has ongoing treatment. Because my doctors have told me, Stephen, it's not a matter of if it's coming back, it's a matter of when. And I always
Yeah.
tell my doctor, I'm like, look, I don't like that terminology whatsoever. You know, you
Yeah.
can change that. And of course, we have a conversation about that. And of course, Dr. Mazzell and I have that kind of relationship, which I'm sure your doctor does too. But but it's like this is something that we're gonna wake up tomorrow, and you know, it's you know, we just still gonna take a pill, and you're gonna, you know, we have that journey. So um, it is what it is, I guess, more than anything. But it's hard, you know, and
This is just, yeah. I mean, it's the name of the game is resilience because,
yeah, it's like a marathon.
you know, yeah,
Yeah,
I have an option to, and I have people telling me this, and I have to keep telling myself this. I have an option to live in fear for the rest of my life.
right,
I have an option to go to bed tonight thinking, what's growing inside me right now? I
right.
have an option
That's
to
good.
think, I'm 37. Am I going to be there when I'm 40? I have a
Yeah,
very real critical voice that says you could be dead in 5 years. And I have another voice that says, but you're alive now.
yeah.
What are you doing now? And I have
That's
fought
so good.
spiritually.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I have fought spiritually and physically and mentally and emotionally, um, to be here and to believe that my work is not done here on this earth.
yeah.
And
So
it's
good.
a daily choice to not choose fear.
Yes.
Um,
Right.
is
And
this
so,
day?
and here's the thing, like whether it's COVID or this, or and I won't get into all that, but you know, it's how we live in a world that promotes fear, you know,
Yeah.
and promotes doubt and promotes all these things.
Everything
They
out there
use
is out to get you. Yeah.
yes, they use fear
Yeah.
to their benefit, right? They use
Yeah.
fear to manipulate. They use fear, and that's across the board. I'm talking about like whether you're talking about government or church I mean religion or this or that. I mean, it doesn't matter. Fear, you know, it's like, I mean, that's not that's not what God's all about. It's not about fear, you know.
Yeah.
It's about, but we have to deal with it. You know, like you said, you have to wonder. Those are great things you said about that. So anyway, so
Yeah.
a stem cell transplant. So a lot of people don't, you know, go through that, and that was the weirdest thing. I got a picture of you with your stem cells, I think.
Oh Lord, it's
Um,
a horrible picture, but it's
oh,
a
is it
real.
really?
It was. I
Do you
mean,
not want me to show it?
I mean, no, please do. It's okay. It's hey. It was my rebirth day, so
Yeah.
I'd rather be alive, and have a
I
bad
have
looking
to
picture.
I have to find it. I've got to get better at this. So I haven't been finding the pictures. So so your stem cell transplant was when?
The actual transplant day was May 30th, and I was admitted into the hospital a week before that, where I received grade 9 chemo
Yeah.
infusions for a solid week, every
Yeah,
day
and
for 7 days.
that's crazy, Lacey, because I only had to have that once,
I know.
but you
You
had
know
to
what?
have
I
that.
brought you up so many times. I said, please tell me why this man only had 1 day, and I am sitting here for 7 days getting my bone
I
marrow kicked in
I
the
had
butt.
grade 9, but I only had it for 1 day, and I was sucking popsicles down like a
Yeah.
mother, man, because
Oh.
I didn't want those mouth sores. Did you get the mouth sores too?
I did not.
That's good.
I did the even though I was sick and tired of it, man, I had the frozen stuff in my mouth and was
Yeah,
also just as a tip, I'll keep telling people if you're in chemo, worried about mouth sores, swish coconut oil in your mouth for 20 minutes every day. I never had a single mouth sore the entire treatment.
really. Wow.
Yes.
And so, like, for just so people will know, and this is we've talked about it in course of videos, but like when you have a stem cell transplant, like there's a lady I just met today. Well, I haven't met her yet, but I just found out about her. But she's in Arkansas, and she has a blood cancer, and so she's gonna have to have a stem cell transplant. And you had an autologous, right? Which is what I have, which is when they give you back your stem cells, correct?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Get my
And
own stem
so
cells.
yeah, and so the chemo they give you, but I still don't remember why you had to have that many days of it.
Because my cancer is difficult.
Okay, all
um,
right.
like I said,
And so this
mine's
is
a
like
very
just you're just
stubborn
trying
one.
to they're just trying to pound it as hard as they can before they gave you your stem cells.
Yeah, no, they told me they were throwing everything, including the kitchen sink, at it,
Yeah,
and that's what they did.
yeah. Okay.
Uh,
Here's that. So then they do that, and then you have 2 days, or you have a day off, and then the
yes.
next day they give you your stem cells. So you had
Yep.
7 days, but
Yep.
did you? So then they had at the seventh day, then you had one day off. Then they gave you your stem cells back. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah. They gave
Okay.
me 1 day for the chemo to clear out, and oh,
There you
there it
are.
is. Oh, jolly day. Jolly day.
So and then was
Um,
anybody in the room with you? Did you have a family? You have somebody with you?
my parents were over to the left of me, and so
Okay.
they get you in that bed and they hook up those heart monitors
Right.
and warm up those stem cells, give you some Benadryl, and I loved it because we had the chaplain come in and he prayed, and we all said a prayer before it went in, and then I just said, "Hey, stem cells, let's go get the job done."
Okay. There I am.
Oh, there you are.
I have no idea what
I
just
was like,
happened.
"Well," and
I
that's
have
the end of
no
the
idea what
show.
just happened. Yeah.
um, yeah, I remember when they were putting in the stem cells. I just said, I just looked at them. I'm like, "Go in there and kick some butt.
Yeah.
Bring me back. Bring me
Right.
back."
Well, and did everybody? So, like, one thing that people don't may not know about that, but when they gave me my stem cells back, then everything. My wife and my daughter were in there, and I smelled like cream corn.
Yep, it's a real smell.
Like my daughter,
It's a real smell. The room smelled
Megan
like
leaned
it.
down and I was like, I don't know. I said something. Of course, I guess cream corn smell was coming out of my mouth too, and she almost threw up. So, but
Yeah.
did
Yeah,
and
I had warned
did,
my parents about that.
yeah, and then and the coolest moment for me was that was when there was a chaplain that came in. It was a sweet lady. I can't remember her name. She was um I can't remember, but she came in and prayed like a blessing over my stem cells. And
Yes,
I'm telling you, that
I had
was
the same
because
thing.
I don't know what it was. You had the same thing, right? And
Yes.
because I don't know what it was, but I was like, that was a moment where I had this fear because it was so unknown, and I'm like, I think it's
Yeah.
because what's fixing to happen to me.
Yes.
How is this
Yes.
going to
I
go
got a
down?
chaplain in here praying over me. Yeah.
Yeah,
I know
right.
what
And so
you're saying.
this chaplain's praying over me, and you're fixing to give me these stem cells back, and then I don't know how they're going to respond. And I remember after the stem cell transplant, I was in the hospital from December the 28th to January the 16th. So like,
Mhm.
it, and I was fortunate, I'm blessed in that I only had to have 1 unit of blood and 2 units of platelets during that
Yeah.
process. But um, but it was still just that weird moment. And I remember waking up every morning, not knowing, and you're watching your numbers go down to zero. And for you guys that don't know, when you have a stem cell transplant, they wipe out your immune system, and so you're neutropenic. So basically, you are.
You got
That's
nothing
why
in there fighting for
you
you.
have nothing. Yeah, and that's why the seventh floor at T Boone Pickens is one of the coolest places to me on the planet because they care for you so well and they protect you. And but even then, it's like in those moments, I would wake up every morning and I'll be like, I kind of open my eyes, think, how do I feel? And of course, I was, had
Yeah.
my moments, or sick and all that stuff, but it was just such a crazy experience because mentally, you're it's you're just you're going to what's next,
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
life. And I think that's what goes back to what you said earlier. I think in that moment, everybody's going to have different responses. I don't know how many units of blood did you have to have and all that.
Yeah, two I had two blood transfusions, but I had to have my platelets struggled, so I think I
Yeah,
probably had 4 or 5 platelet transfusions, or just
yeah,
to be put in.
because they go to
Um,
zero. You have no
yeah,
you have no
you have
protection
nothing.
whatsoever. Weird.
It is. It's a strange experience,
Yeah.
and it's weird for them to come in, and of course, like, after the transplant part, the effects of the chemo that you just got have kicked in, and so I wasn't feeling good, and they had to keep telling me, you're feeling bad because of the chemo, not because you're down at 0.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. That's what
and
Curtis had told me too.
yeah,
But it's
um,
hard to think that because you're thinking, what do you mean not? I have nothing protecting me. Surely that's why,
I have
but it's,
nothing protecting me.
yeah, it
Yeah,
was just a weird moment. And then, you just kind of start, I think from that point forward, you had yours at the end of May, and then, and
yeah,
then they tell you, I think that's where everything begins to shift, because
yeah,
it's like, okay, what's going to happen? And I think that's just, where faith comes in, for us in a lot of ways. And what do we believe? Because I remember when I was diagnosed, there was a moment where I had to look in the mirror, and because you don't know what's going to happen, and and you're just kind of, what do I believe? I mean, because um, at that point, life kind of, like you said earlier, life changes, right? And for me,
yeah,
I grew up in church. I grew up around all that. I worked in church, and I think what people miss a lot of times, and this is what I feel like that is part of our purpose moving forward. This whole point of Your Story Matters is that it's got to be your story. It can't be somebody else's story. It's got to be your faith. It can't be somebody else's faith. It has to be, my wife can't do this for me, and nobody else can do this for me. We have to
yeah.
we have to face it. And whether it's Pam or Rick or all these people that I could name, of Sydney and Ron, and names, you could throw names out of people that you've met, and that, whatever the case is, life can change on a dime, and who we are and what we believe is important. And you and I talked a lot about that earlier, and just um,
Yeah.
I thought that was so good, Lacey. If you don't mind sharing, like, some of that kind of how you viewed things before your diagnosis,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
and how that changed, because, and we can kind of begin to end with that, but I'd love to, if you share whatever that you want to.
Yeah. And I plan to share my testimony at a certain point when I'm ready to online. But
Right. And you share what you
um
want to, obviously, you know
oh
what I'm saying?
yeah, no, no,
That
no, no. I'm not
definitely.
worried about it. I'm not worried about it. Not at all. But because the story itself is very impactful, but it is definitely a story. I was raised Methodist. I grew up in the church. And I felt like got into high school, and after high school I just kind of floated back and forth with my spirituality, separating religion from spirituality and finding that it's about that relationship with God, not all the rules
Right.
and all the things. Like, what is your relationship with God? And that floated back and forth for me. And like I told you earlier, in early college years, I kept hanging on to that Nietzsche quote that religion is the opiate of the masses. And I went through a phase where that's exactly what I thought. Um, but, I will tell you, man, that the day that I went to see the hematologist for the first time, the cancer doctor for the first time, and he said,
Yeah.
I'm not sure if this is an infection or cancer. I'm going to let my radiologist look at this. I'll see you in 3 weeks. I left there, went to lunch. It was at a Panera by North Park Mall in Dallas. And I look up, and sitting in the restaurant is my childhood pastor. I had not seen this man
Yeah.
since I was 11 or 12 years old, and there he was, out of all the days. And
Right.
I saw him, and we reunited, and I thought that was so cool. And that's kind of where that spark started for me, where I was like, "Whoa!" Like, that's because that night was the night that I got the call saying something's wrong. We need to take a
Yeah.
closer look. And I'm like, that same day, I see my childhood pastor, and then um, as I got my journey started, I was really facing my own mortality, and and I'll share this story online. But right before my PET scan, after my second round, right the night before my PET scan, I went into a really dark place, and I was at home alone, and I was on the floor of my bedroom crying, and just saying out loud, I don't want to die. I don't want to die. And and I'll tell the detailed story later, but I turned around and started praying, and I had this. It's my voice in my head, but as I was praying and I was saying, "I don't want to die. I don't want to die," a voice came very firmly in the voice of me, but in my head that said,
Right.
"Stop saying you don't want to die.
Yeah.
Say what you want. Say, I want to live."
Yeah.
And that led to a whole story about a song I heard the next day. But there's a special song that popped up for me the next morning when I went to my PET scan. And part of that song was a part, the lyrics talked. I was on the way to the PET scan, and this song comes on, and the lyrics were talking. It was a Christian song, and it's called "Dancing on the Waves" by Bethel Music. And this verse said, um, pretty much, "Don't be afraid, and your future, it's open wide." And it has a line in there that said, "Your past is dead and gone. Your healing has begun. I'm making all things new." And the day of my stem cell transplant, that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
It's a brand new immune system.
That's,
And
that's so good. Yeah.
um, that story itself, how that song came about, I was driving, it popped up. It was a whole, I believe God was speaking to me that morning. And
Yeah.
however we interpret God and the different ways we interpret God, something bigger than myself spoke to me.
Right.
And the event itself has now put me firmly in a place that you cannot tell me that something does not exist.
Right.
Um, and I think that faith and that need to say that I want to live and my work is not done here is so important.
Yeah.
Um, and we
I know
talked about
people
this
that,
earlier. Oh yeah,
yeah.
go ahead.
Go ahead. No, go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, we talked about this earlier. When you get cancer, so many people circle around you and they're right
Mm-hmm.
there with you. And I had some people
Mm-hmm.
that were there for me in my darkest moments, but the journey is yours. At the end
Yeah.
of the day, you're the one fighting it. And even when you're surrounded. And so when that's the deal, that faith comes into play because that's who's
Yeah.
inside,
Yeah.
and I truly believe that now,
Yeah. That's
unquestionably.
awesome. Yeah. And I
Yeah.
think that's, I told you earlier that Nietzsche statement, because religion isn't the answer. I mean, it's just not. I mean, people identify, of course, you have to be careful because people say, you know, they identify religion with a relationship with God, and it's not the same.
Mm-mm.
Religion is
You can,
it's a, go ahead.
yeah, no, like you can know the Bible front and backwards. You can look the part and play the part, but if the actual relationship you have with God is not there, that relationship is not there, that conversation is not there, that it doesn't matter to
That's
me. I
exactly
mean,
right. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. And that's the
yeah,
thing. Like, and, and I've been guilty of this too. It's like, I'm going to pray for you. I'm going to do this. And that's why I've tried to write it down and begin to be more intentional. I tell people all the time, and they don't listen. Probably it doesn't matter, but maybe somebody does. It doesn't really matter. I mean, what do I know? But what I do know is this: is that if you know somebody, if we can get so wrapped up in our world, like in my own life, and you could tell me this, I'm sure in your own life as well. We've got things right now that are pressing in on us, that are struggles or schedules or this or that.
oh
But
yeah.
but when you're in that stem cell floor in that stem cell room, I mean, none of that crap matters.
Nope,
You
it
know,
doesn't. Life, yes, life stopped. That's all that
yeah,
matters.
it does. I mean, you still have stuff that's going on around you, but at that point,
Yeah.
and and I asked you this earlier. It's like the support and the relationship. I mean, people need to, Jesus said, "Look, love God, love people." That's it. I mean, that's what
Yeah.
it comes down to. And so, um, people need to reach out to one another. So if like, and if you know somebody that's struggling, because how awesome is it? Because you and I've stayed in touch and just
Yeah.
and have this relationship. We have this connection, obviously with the stem cell transplant, especially and with blood cancer, and that's kind of a connection. And then anybody that's been diagnosed with cancer, whether it's my friend Albert that I work with, and you know, um, he has brain tumor, and you could tell me all these people. We all go
Mm,
through these things and these struggles, but at the end of the day, faith. is a decision that we make to believe, and it affects how we approach life. And I don't want to be sick, and I don't want my identity. And I think this is something that's really important that we talked about earlier too. My
Yeah,
identity, I don't want my identity to be cancer, but cancer is a part of my story. It's a part of my journey. And so and this is where I get emotional because I feel like we have such a responsibility,
we do.
to share the journey that we all have, and to share because somebody out there tonight, and I don't know who it is maybe is like the lady that I connect with today. And we hadn't even talked yet, but somebody's going through something that we go through, and so your story and the things you're going to share, and I can't wait for you to share that and get to share it. Um,
Yeah,
so everything, the whole story, more of what you told me earlier today, which is unbelievable. It's awesome, and it's hard, and it's difficult, and it's frustrating, and it's a struggle, but it's a moment where something bigger than ourselves, like you said a while ago, is out there, and for me, it's just like we talked about earlier. It is that relationship with the Lord,
yeah,
and it is having
yeah,
that. But I think it's when your faith becomes sight. It's when okay, so yeah, so you know all these stories. So what? So you can read all this stuff. So what? What do you believe? Really, what do you believe?
yeah,
Don't tell me what. Don't just say something rhetorically to me that you've been spoon fed.
yeah.
Because
What
that's
do
not
you
going to
believe?
do anything. Yeah,
Yeah,
my dad passed
yeah.
away in June, and and I've heard these stories like of a gentleman here locally that was fit I mean, just fit and healthy, and all of a sudden, in a matter of 30 days, he wasn't,
Gone.
and gone.
Yeah, yeah,
And we're just not promised anything. And like you said earlier, I want to live. I don't feel like I'm done yet either, and I want to
yeah,
take advantage of. And that's why doing. We want to do what we're purposed for, and accomplish what we can while we're here because I mean, you're 37. That still blows me away, right? But you got so much life in front of you, and but when something like this comes into your life, it puts into question everything. And
yeah. It's
so,
crazy. I just want you to know, like you saying that, like when you just said what you just said, and when you said, "Man, you're 37, that's crazy. You have so much life to live." There was a literal voice that came in my head that said, "I hope I do."
right,
And that's
that's good.
reality.
Yeah,
That's the reality I live in now, right? Is that like
exactly.
I have to tell that voice to sit down. It's okay, you know.
Right,
But we're not promised. And just this year alone, I lost my uncle to cancer, and I've lost my cousin to a different disease. And someone that I met at the Salmon Center who sat right next to me was getting chemo with me on my first round. She prayed with me. She just passed away a week ago, and you know, I I think the big message, and I hope that if people are listening to this and they're going through cancer or they're going through anything, I think of the four S's that they got to have. There's four legs to a chair. You've got to have that self care piece. Take care of yourself. You got to find strength. Where's that strength coming from? What motivation? What do you need? You got support, and you need spirituality. Where are you connecting spiritually? Where are you finding your strength? Where are you finding your support? And where are you finding that ability to take care of yourself and that self care?
what are
Um,
they again? So what are they? Say it one more time.
Four S's. You got self care. How you take care of yourself.
Right,
Strength. Where are you getting your strength? Whether that can be religiously, but that can be just
right,
motivation, reading, whatever it is. So self care, strength, support. That's that external support. Who's in your circle,
right.
and then spirituality. And when you're missing one of those, the chair gets wobbly. And so
Yeah,
I think if you're facing a cancer diagnosis or you're just facing grief in some form, um, I've figured out that I've got to have those. And usually, Stephen, anytime I am not feeling good emotionally, I look at which S am I not engaging with right
that's
now?
good. Yeah,
Yeah, and I'm like, oh, that's it.
yeah.
So
Well, I
yeah,
think
man.
that's I think for all of us, that's the biggest thing. It's just making those decisions, and that's what I want this to become is for because like I said, every story matters, and every story will manifest itself in different ways, and it's just um, but like you just said, I mean, how and I mean, and that's like And at the end of the day, that's a choice, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's like we have a choice and have a decision to make. And I this is and like you said earlier, this isn't about there's so many I mean, I need to I need to get back into a diet that, because it's easy to fall off.
Oh,
It's easy to
yes,
fall
it is.
away. I mean, I was walking through the store the other day and I was like, I freaking love bottle caps. And I bought a bottle and sugar is the worst
The
thing that you
candy?
need.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
I know it's god awful, right? But I think that um I don't know.
I'm
It's
a
just
sugar addict, so
I
I get
know,
it.
right? And sugar is a
I get it.
cancer feeder. Cancer feeds off of sugar.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and so and even as I said that, it's like you you gotta balance that out and realize that you gotta, find the balance in everything. And don't be
Yeah.
because now it's Christmas and you got all this stuff in front of you and
Yes.
and last year I was in such a I mean, when like you said earlier, when you're in the middle of that fight, I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean, I didn't have any refined sugar from 1st of August until I ate those popsicles on December the 27th.
I'm
None.
proud of you because that's the opposite of what I did.
Well, I'm not saying that because
I
I'm great.
tried. I tried.
I was like,
But I was
I don't
also in a
know. It
place
was
that I wasn't
just
eating very well, so I'm like, I thought I'm
yeah.
eating something good. But I'm
Well,
proud of you.
well, thanks, Lacey, but I haven't done very
I
good
really
lately as
am.
of yet. So thanks,
I'm just
but I
saying.
haven't done as well lately. So, but I think but it goes back to a choice. It's a
Yeah.
decision. I think those S's are really good. It's like I mean, mentally, like today you talked about when you said that. Hey, I went for a walk. That's something that something physical. So that you're taking care of yourself or something.
Yeah.
And I love David Goggins. I mean, I don't know if you ever read any
I'm
David
listening to
Goggins.
his book right now.
Which one is it? The first one?
You Can't Hurt Me or something like
Oh,
that.
yeah, it's
That
so good, right?
I'm listening to his audiobook as I work out. Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
and that guy, I mean, and I love something that he said in that book. He said, because I've listened, he's got two books.
Yeah.
And so I can't remember the name of the first one, but is that the first one? It doesn't matter.
That's the
But
one I'm listening to, and it's
yeah, but
wow.
he says something in there that I know it's crazy, right? That guy, but I love something he said. He said, look, don't tell me that Goggins is just some freak of nature, which he is, but he wasn't always that. It was a choice that he made, and he said everybody
Yeah.
is a decision away from making a choice, to change their life, to change their destiny, and I think that's is important because you can just roll over. I mean, and quit, and what I'm saying, you can just quit,
I do
and
know.
I think that's what
Yeah.
we saw with we saw that with COVID. We've seen
Yeah.
that. I think that the powers that be, they want us to quit. They don't want us to. And when I say the powers that be, I believe there's a great book by a guy named Stephen Pressfield, and it's called The War of Art. And in that book, he talks about the power of resistance, and he talks about how the resistance is in the world. It's just a
Yeah.
natural force. So anytime that you're going to try to do something to better yourself, to have the right attitude, or whatever the case may be, that resistance is going to always come after you. And because there's
Yeah.
something natural that tries to keep us from, that's just out there. It's part of life. And but we have to make that choice every day. Like this podcast. I mean, I don't it's like hopefully people, people will watch it, and I want people to watch it and we can share it, but at the end of the day, you and I got on here tonight and we freaking did this thing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's the thing. It's like, and so somebody out there, if it's just one person, right, that it matters. And now I'm learning how to put all these little banners, and I added your S's, and I thought
It's
that was cool.
fancy. No, it's fancy. But
Well, thanks.
I applaud you. I applaud you, and I want you to know how much I applaud you because the first thing I did when I got my diagnosis was I just started looking on Facebook for anyone that shared my diagnosis or was my age or was talking about things that that we're going through with cancer, and it was hard to find stuff, and so
Yeah,
I want more people to this has happened. I want more people to feel like they have people they can go to. I remember
yeah.
calling you and saying, I want to know every bit about that stem cell transplant.
Right, I was the same way.
I bet I asked you 80,000 questions about it.
And I freaking loved it because it was like because we're built that way, right? It's like we
Yeah.
need, and I know that everybody's personalities are different and stuff like that, but and I just loved sharing that with you because I had the same thing.
Yeah.
There's a lady named Tennille, and I called her, and she had her
Oh, that
stem
was
cell
your
transplant,
person.
yeah, 20 years ago. And
Yeah.
then there's another guy in Louisiana that I was able to talk to that actually had the same. My stem cell doctor was Dr. Koshi. I can't remember who yours
Hmm.
was. Who was yours?
It's Dr. Reynolds, but I do know Dr. Koshi.
I like Dr. Yeah. I think you get to when you go through that, you're going to talk to all those doctors because they
Yeah, they
rotate.
all. I got to meet them
Yeah,
all.
they're amazing. But Dr. Koshi was his doctor in Shreveport when Dr. Koshi was at LSU Med Center in Shreveport. And so just those weird things, but it helped me so much to have that conversation, to
Yeah.
know because you have no idea what to expect. And really, you can
Yeah.
answer all those questions and everything, and I went up to your room and you had your room decorated. It was awesome and have that relationship, but you don't know until you know. I mean, and you can ask
Nope.
all the questions and you prep and you can prepare, but you just don't know till you
Yeah.
know. And I think the thing that I love about what you've done, Lacey, and just that has been so encouraging to me is that you said this earlier. We're not on here to try to tell everybody that that we're always great and we're always good, and because we're not. I mean, it's you. I won't. I mean, Wednesday is a weird day for me, because I do blood work, and when I get my blood work, I get my results like 2 days later,
Yes.
and this is a weird idiosyncrasy that I have, but I'll open the email and I'll put my thumb over the phone. You know what I'm saying? I'll push,
Yep.
and then I'll slowly pull. I'll
Slowly go through
slowly
each one.
pull. I
Yes.
slowly pull my
Low.
thumb
Is
away
it
from it.
low? Is it
Yeah.
high? Is it
Is
yes?
it
Oh my
and
gosh. Yeah.
in
Yeah.
the
Yeah. Yeah.
back of
Yeah.
my mind, I'm sitting there going, I know it's going to be zero. But at the same time, like you said, well, there's a voice back there that says, what if it's point 0.3? Then
Yeah. What
because
does
they're
that mean? Yeah.
and that
Well, and you
sucks,
need to.
but
Yeah. I would say like you're needing to accept and like that's life from now on, and it's not
it
in
is
necessarily a negative way, but it's when your life's been changed on a dime. Again, like it's a retraining of your brain. You could sit the rest of your life waiting on a dime. When is
right.
something bad going to happen? When is
Can't do
something
that.
bad going to happen? You
That's
can't.
right. No,
So,
you got to live. And I mean, I know that you had your stem cell transplant at the end of May. And I think you said you went back to work probably too early, but it was in July, right? And did I see a picture of you in a bubble? Were you in a bubble? I wish I had that picture.
yes, I was in a bubble. Ginger Bass is responsible for that. She went and got one of those giant inflatable bubbles. And
I
so
would love to
at the
know what she
beginning of
got.
the year, yeah, at the beginning of the year when they introduced the administrative staff to because we had new principal and it's
Yeah.
like now let's reintroduce everybody else. I came out in the bubble because I wasn't supposed to be there. Yeah, my
Yeah.
doctor did not want. She said, I'm good with you returning part time in September. And I was like, July it is. Um, but I stayed masked and I tried to stay away from people and
Yeah.
but it did make recovery a little bit longer. So if you're getting a stem cell transplant,
Right. I agree.
rest. Please rest. Please
Yeah.
rest.
Well, I
Please
mean,
rest.
I was well, and I told you this earlier. It was like I got out of the hospital on January the 16th, and then we had that scare with my wife Donna, and so she's in the.
Yeah.
It's funny now. It wasn't funny then, but
Yeah, it's
so
not
I'm
funny
having
now. I can't believe you're
yeah,
in the ER.
and I was like, and so it's like less than a month. I don't even know, like a couple weeks, 2 or 3 weeks later, she's in the ER, and
Yeah.
I'm sitting there in the ER, and I'm literally, there I am bald and no immune system,
Golly.
and I'm in an ER, and I remember being and it was raining, and no, and it was a scary time because I
That's
mean they thought
just
the story goes. I told you this today, but they thought she might have cancer, which is crazy, and so then we go from the
yeah.
ER to the hospital, and I have to drive home. I'm not even supposed to be driving, and I'm driving home and getting stuff, and
Did you
and
still
then
have your
taking.
catheter in?
No, I got that out. I think I got that out the week before. So
Okay, good.
I had just gotten that out, thankfully. Yeah,
Ugh,
that would have sucked. And so, but I don't know. My point in all that is that you can live in fear if you want,
yeah,
and you got to be responsible. You can't be stupid, you know,
yeah,
but, um, but you got to live, and,
yeah,
and I love what you said a while ago because I think, um, everybody's experience is different. And I think, like you said earlier, like if people are like anybody that's going to have a stem cell transplant, that's a unique group of people, and just like anybody else that has something. I mean, you could name whatever. It's like a fraternity of people that have gone through something. And I love
Yeah.
what they do at Salmons. They have like stem cell anniversaries and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
um, we just have to, even though you went back earlier than you probably should, and it did delay the process and all that, I think it's still a mentality that says, we want to live, and I want to
Yeah.
keep doing what I'm doing. And so, I was doing weddings again on March the 5th, and it was Charles and Lauren. I'll never forget because I called them. I said, "Hey," I called them about. I said, "Listen, I'm gonna be there." I said, "Now I'm bald, so the pictures are gonna be, And they're like, "We don't care," So I'm like, "Okay, good," because I
I
did,
bet you
but
look great as a bald man.
my boys were like, "You should stay." I think I wanted to get my ears pierced, like get my ears pierced with
Yeah.
hoops and be bald. You know what I'm saying? Got
Yeah.
the goatee going on.
You could
So
definitely do it.
let me
You
see
could
if
definitely do it.
I have a picture of me bald. Do you want to? Let me see if I can find it.
Let me see it.
Yeah, hold on. Let me look. Give me a second. This is still all new to me a little bit. Although I have been practicing, I think trying to get better at this little situation and everything. So tell me, like, as far as like we were talking earlier about while I'm finding this, let's go to this right here. Well, we were doing two things at once. Hang on one second.
I like your
So
multitasking
this,
happening.
what about this? Let's talk about this. What do you think about
Yes.
this idea? I'm serious. Like, I'm asking you a question.
Yes.
Like, do you think this is a good idea?
I think this is a wonderful idea. I think
Okay.
that it's a meaningful cause for people, and I just think get this up and going. I think the financial burden of going through cancer, along with just the spiritual and the mental and the emotional beat down of it, having to persevere and be resilient and all the things to award people this kind of thing would be awesome. And I'd love to help just gather money for this.
Yeah.
And I'd love to
And
get up at Salmons and make that happen.
I know, man. I think it's something that we can do together because, like, yours is in, even if it's just, and it doesn't have, like we were talking about earlier, it's not like for me, I was in the hospital, um, and I'm sitting there, it's just me and Donna, and I was like, you know, I want to be in Colorado a year from now. That's my goal.
I
And
said Disney World.
so, okay. And that's my thing. So I'm like, so that's yours is coming up in May. And so, that's the deal. And like, I've got some other friends that I know, and I think just if you're on the stem cell floor, and that's what I'm trying to go through my final step, like I told you to volunteer up there. I think, when you're on that stem cell floor and you're volunteering, I think if you have something that you can encourage people with and say, hey,
Yes.
here's what, something to look forward to, something that they
Yes.
can, something that they can, um, um, have something that they can uh, look forward to. I don't know. I mean, I just feel like something
Well,
that
and
it
I
would really
well,
be.
I think there are people watching that may not know. So, like, what you're trying to do is start essentially a fundraiser to help uh, gather funds so that when stem cell transplant patients reach their 1 year anniversary,
Right,
you can send them on a trip, and that's
right.
what you would be collecting funds for. And I think that's awesome. And
I
I
think,
think that
yeah,
especially because they tell you you're not traveling for a year.
right.
Now, whether you follow that guidance is a different situation, but technically you
Yeah.
should not.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. We've been all over the place.
I have not yet. I have not yet, but
Have you not?
oh,
Well, that's good. Well,
I
what
but
my
I
son was during this fall, we were gone like every weekend, but I'm off in a
yeah.
year, so I feel like at least I'm not.
Oh yeah, you're close. But
Yeah,
I would
but I
love to join efforts to help raise funds because I think it's wonderful for
yeah.
people and it's a
Well, I
huge
think so too.
celebration.
Well, this is something that Lacey and I are going to work on together, and we're going to talk about and try to figure it out. Because it's something we really want to. I just think it'd be such a cool. I want to send you to Disney World with a family or whoever. That's
Oh
something that
goodness.
I'd love to
Well,
do. And so, but that way though, a year on your year anniversary, it's something that you can look forward to. And I think I believe in this, and and I believe it'll bring more awareness to stem cell transplants.
yeah.
And and people that go through them, and whether it's autologous, which is when you get your stem cells back, you get your own stem cells, and then Aloe, right, is the other one. Am I saying that
Allergenic,
right?
yeah.
Allergen.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
that
think
was
it's
what they.
allergenic is
You
when
have
you
them
get it
donated.
from someone
Yeah,
else. Yeah,
yeah, they're
yeah.
donated. So anyway, hey, thank you for doing this tonight. Here's that picture I'll show
Absolutely, I
you. Here we
appreciate
go.
it.
Look at this. Look at this guy right here.
Oh, and what an awesome shirt that is.
Don't you love my shirt? Right?
I think
My sister-in-law gave me that shirt for Christmas one year. It's one of my favorite shirts. And and you can
man,
see.
that shirt wins.
I know,
That
right?
shirt
And so
wins.
you can see like my goatee. I didn't shave my goatee, and but see, it's just all go. It just kept falling out and disappearing. And
That's all
so
right.
this was I don't know when was this. This was probably this was February, I believe,
Winter,
or
right? I'm
March.
seeing the trees back there. There's no
Yeah, I
leaves
think it
yet.
was late February, early March, somewhere in
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
So
You know
we
what? Can you get that picture framed and we could put it up at the Salmon Center or something?
yeah, I think that would be good. We could do that anyway.
That's good. That's good.
Well, thanks for
All right,
sharing
man.
with us tonight. Thanks for
Well,
sharing your
thank
story with
you.
us. Oh man,
Thank you
listen,
for letting me share my story. I
yeah,
want to I want to do what you're doing. I want to be able to I'm ready to have a transplant patient or a cancer patient come to me and say, "I'm scared, I'm about to do this." Like, it's cool
right,
that you're already in this work and
yeah.
I aspire to it.
Well,
Good
and I think
job.
that's the thing. Like we can have a. Well, thank you. I think we can have a network of people, that we could connect with, and who knows, and it's out there. There's the opportunities and stuff. But for me, I don't know about, and not to belabor the point, but it was harder. It was harder to connect, I think, because some of these organizations, they're great organizations,
Yeah.
and doing great things, but there's that personal side and that personal touch that you get when it's someone you connect with, and
Yes.
for
Yeah.
me,
Yeah.
and I did like the lymphoma society, Luke, whatever that society, and then I did have a guy that was checking on me, and this lady check on me, and do some stuff like that. But I think, oh, and this is something we talked about earlier too, because sometimes when you go to these Facebook groups and you go to these things, I just couldn't. I got to a point where I was like, I don't want to read this anymore because it was
It
so
will.
negative. It was. I was like, it
Yes.
was like I was wallowing through crap, and I,
Yeah, you gotta
and bless
there's a
their hearts.
warning that needs to come with that.
Yeah, there
Yeah.
is because and it's not everybody,
Yeah.
and I understand everybody who faces things different. So I'm not being critical. I'm not being judgmental at all. But it just for me, I
It's hard.
just
People are coming on there with
because
some
it.
hard stuff.
Yeah, they are, and they are going through
Yeah.
hard things, But I
Yeah.
think so. I think we can go. You can kind of jump in there and be encouragement and stuff like that. And sometimes you need to put some stuff down. Like, what do I do about this? I don't know what to do about this. And I mean,
Yeah.
because you do have questions and you do have struggles and fears. Like you said earlier, it's not every day is not great, and we don't know
Yeah.
everything, and so we need
Well,
help. But
I just have to say if you have been recently diagnosed and you join an online Facebook group, you've got to tell yourself that you got to put some kind of shield down because I would
yeah,
wake up
navigate
in the
that.
morning, open Facebook, and it would be like all of these posts
Yeah,
on that non-Hodgkin's lymphoma page, and I was like,
yeah,
oh man.
right.
So you got
Well,
to
and that's
warn
the thing.
yourself
Like,
there.
well, and you have. And this is the last thing I'll say, but then when you run into somebody, of course yours is so rare. You said it's so difficult to find people that have what you have. But there've been
Yeah.
several times where I've been talking to somebody and I said yeah, and expressing or sharing what I've got, multiple myeloma, or what I've been diagnosed with. There, I said it, but what I've been diagnosed with, which is multiple myeloma, and then somebody inevitably was like, "Oh yeah, I know somebody had that, and that. I know somebody's dad passed away from that." And I'm like, "Oh, that's encouraging. Thank you very much."
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks. Thank
But
you.
but again, that's just
Yeah.
reality, right? It's like, I mean,
Yeah. And
and so
connecting
you
with
have
you
to,
because it's to say like I
yeah,
knew someone and
right. I knew
yeah.
somebody, and so they didn't mean anything bad by
But
it.
it's
But
tough.
yeah, but you have to mentally go, okay, well, that's just part of it. People get
Yeah.
that, and there's a guy in
But you
Colorado. There's a
no,
guy
go
in
ahead.
Colorado named Clay Drake. He's a cool guy, and he's so encouraging to me, and I want to have him on here eventually too. But he has multiple myeloma, and he's had it for a long time, and
Yeah.
he's going through another series of treatments too right now, and so, but he'll say things. What I love about Clay is he'll say things that he's going through, but then he'll say, but things have changed, and what you're going through is completely different. So you know what I'm saying? It's the way you communicate
Yeah,
it,
it's that
and
awareness. Yeah.
yeah, it makes a big difference. So anyway,
Well, I just want to
Well,
tell you this, regardless of what you're diagnosed with, I think that like it's your own experience and you get to own it. And so like when
yeah.
you say people say like I've got multiple myelo, whatever, like you get to redefine that. And what's
Yeah, that's
cool
good.
is that
Yeah.
I want you to be you because there's going to be somebody along the lines that gets that diagnosis and they're scared, but they see you and they're like, man,
Right.
like he's doing great, you know.
Yeah.
So
That's awesome.
kudos to you and keep doing what you're doing.
Thanks, Lacey. You too. Love you, Van. So proud and thank you for being here. You're my first guest ever on the Freakcast.
I feel honored. Thank you very
And
much.
your hair looks great too, by the way. It's I mean,
Oh,
is it
it's
coming in
you
different?
know, it's coming in a little darker than I'm used to, and,
Yeah.
you know, it's much like my personality, it just does what it wants, and, now it's coming back to haunt me. So,
Yes. I
we're
saw
gonna
your
enjoy the
post.
awkward phases.
Yeah, that's funny. I saw that post that you put up about that. So anyway, well, y'all, thanks for joining us tonight. And
Thank y'all so
if you join
much.
us live, and so, but if you watch this on the playback and share this with people, let people hear Lacey's story because I think it's a great story to hear. And thanks again for joining tonight. So
Thank you for letting me have
anyway,
this opportunity. Appreciate
heck
you so
yeah,
much.
you bet. And I'm gonna play us out because I love this freaking song. So this song, um, Dawson, my son, wrote this song. It's called "Stay True," and it's a great song because he wrote it about he was living in Austin and he was living in a really small garage room, and the whole song is defined by I'm not defined by my environment where I am, and
Love
like
that.
the words, yeah, it's so good. The words are like, "There's no air in this room." And I've lost my shoe, and all this kind of stuff. And it's just, and the whole point is exactly what we talked about is that,
Yeah,
no matter what you're facing and what you're going through, stay true to what you believe, you're meant to be and what God's telling you. And so putting your faith in that and, and trusting that there is a bigger plan, there's a divine plan, and God's always working and purposing something. So that's what the song's all about. So anyway,
I love
all
it.
right.
I love it.
Well, all right. Well, listen,
Thanks, man.
have have a good night. We'll talk to you later. Thank you guys for
Happy
joining.
holidays to you,
Yeah,
and
you
happy
too.
holidays to everyone.
All right. Well, y'all showing us Wednesday night. I'll see you, Lacey. Thanks, Lacey.
See ya.
All right. Bye. All right, y'all. So Wednesday night, I'll be back on here, and we're gonna have oh, that's loud. We've got Sydney beats stage or Sydney versus Stage 4, and that's Sydney Shelton. She'll be here Wednesday. So hope you'll join back in, and we'll play you out with this, and we will talk to you then. Thanks again.
Feeling strong, it's